Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, grab your drink, keep your pen and your notepad, get ready because it's bankrupt Bramble budget time. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Now, before I get down to the bankrupt Bramble budget, I want to take care of a few housekeeping matters, so to speak. Get them out of the way, and when we get to the budget, it's budget time. Now, yet another one of our institution is going under, riddled with corruption. Gravel and concrete continues to be plagued with corruption. Going on 2 years now, Gravel and Concrete bought in what should have been 2 new concrete pouring trucks. A few months ago, in November of 2024, the story broke that the 2 trucks were sitting on the port, not functional, and couldn't be driven off the port. One worker expressed to me, it's like the trucks was assembled under a mango tree. He said after the company had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for the trucks, they are now spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for parts to try and get the trucks running. The trucks were hauled from the port and delivered to the garage, where they are still there at the moment. He said one of the trucks became a little roadworthy just for over 1 month, and after a few days on the road, broke down and had to be brought back to the garage, and it's been there since. Now, they had to, after purchasing 2 trucks for hundreds of thousands of dollars and spending money, hundreds of thousands of dollars and parts, they still had to end up borrowing trucks from the Renault company, and eventually bought 2 second-hand vehicles from a local company here. Sometime in the last quarter of 2024, a letter signed by the chairman of the board of directors of Gravel and Concrete was circulating around the place. The content, the chairman asking the government for concession and aid in port charges for these 2 trucks. So with all these trucks down and all these parts needed, hundreds of thousands of dollars of parts needed, one director of the board, whose husband owns a part company in the south of the island, decided to capitalize on it. Now, is it true Mrs. Carla Thomas Ross, a director on the board of Gravel and Concrete, through her husband's company, was supplying gravel and concrete with all the needed parts, hundreds of thousands of dollars in parts? And is it true? Recently, they brought in a container of parts for the company, all wrong parts, that's just sitting there now. Is it true Miss Carla Thomas Ross has since resigned from the board of directors? Now, was she made to resign? Did she embarrass and resign? We would like some answers from the company, the manager, the managing director of the Gravel and Concrete. Is it true her husband, a bestie of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, is the one post June 2022 lighting up the length and breadth of Grenada, our roadways, our fields, our parks? Now, anyway, you see the solar lights, the white pole with the blue base, like 3/4 ways down. It's blue from there. It's from Prime Minister's bestie, the chairman of the board of the Spice Mass Corporation board, right? Mr. Kurt Ross and his brother-in-law has the contract to install. So it's one big happy family. Get into that. The managing director of the tire shop in the south of the island. I think they have a couple other places, but he's managing the one in the south. Is a director on the gravel and concrete board as well, and of course supplies gravel and concrete with all the tires and the batteries and whatever else they need besides parts for the vehicles, because Ross have that under control. They have air condition, whatever else is being brought in by the tire shop to supply the gravel and concrete. Folks, but the Prime Minister, it's okay with him. And we'll come to that in a minute. But I'm calling on the manager of gravel and concrete in the meantime to tell us about the container of scaffolding that came in on the gravel and concrete and has since disappeared. If it's true or not true, we need the manager to come forward and tell us about the container of scaffolding. To whom it belongs? Where is this container of scaffolding? Where is it right now at this point? Now, what we see here going on in gravel and concrete is nepotism, blatant conflict of interest. I mean, conflict of interest at the highest level. But then what did the Prime Minister say when asked about conflict of interest within our institutions?
Would things like that worry you in terms of the optics politically? I mean,
No, I think
you
we are as transparent.
there are a bunch of people now with too much time on their hands trying to get their job back because of corruption issues.
We are as transparent a government, I think, as Grenada has seen in my lifetime, for sure. And I think if any issues arises and there's credible evidence of stuff, as a Prime Minister, I'm prepared to deal with it. But what I will not...
Did you look into the lotto matter, though?
Yes, I looked at it.
Because I looked into it, and there seemed to have been a bit of credibility to some of the issues.
I looked into the issue, and I just said to you, which is why I talked about how you handle conflicts in terms of what the legislation says and what has to happen, right? So I'm saying when people just simply make spurious allegations and come up with all kinds of fanciful stuff, you have to be careful that you don't allow people to draw you in and to make decisions as if you are Jesus Christ and he who is without sin cast the first stone. I'm saying the very nature of our laws recognize that you'll have situations where someone who serves on a board may have their firm or their business and so on bidding for work that a particular entity is offering. And there's a process and procedure that has to be followed. So I'm saying if someone makes, and you're saying, do I look into the lotto thing simply because I'm hearing media allegations? If someone makes a credible accusation, we will obviously investigate it and then we make necessary decisions that has to be made. But too often, and I think the National Democratic Congress government in the past was allowed itself to be hoodwinked into trying to go after its own and into trying to punish its own and to hold itself at that standard that's almost impossible. When other people are doing all kind of things left, right, and center and getting away with it. So I'm saying we are living in a society where nobody's perfect. And we have to be careful that we don't try and hold people in public office to a perfect standard and then try to hold them at that.
So then it's okay. Don't bother go after your own. Just let your own rape the country of its resources, just let your own fill up their money bags, just let your own commit fraudulent behavior, just let your own continue with corruption, and you just turn a blind eye. And I wonder why. I wonder why. It's not about just going after your own. There must be an underlying reason why you are allowing the corruption that is taking place within the statutory bodies and the institutions of this country. Now, this one is very personal, and though my daughter told me not to speak about it, I told her I cannot stay quiet. I'm sorry, but I just cannot see things like that happen and turn a blind eye. I can't do it. Now, they have this expo coming up in Japan, and one person from the Ministry of Culture called my daughter and asked her if she would like to, and if she's able and available to go to Japan for the cultural expo. She was happy, she was excited. She said yes, she would want to go, and they would get back to her. Weeks later, if not a good couple of months later, quite recently, today, she got a call from the individual who told her that her name was not approved by the cabinet of Grenada. By the cabinet of Grenada. I told you guys before on this program, my daughter is triple threat. Plus, she's a makeup artist. Now, somebody like that you want on a team, right? Less people to bring. She was maligned, she was sidelined, she was victimized. And we all know why. My daughter is an adult. She's not into the politics like I am. But she continued to take blows from this NDC administration because her only sin is that she's my daughter. Now, the Minister of Culture, Adrian Persuader Thomas, after being a candidate for the NDC in 2013, after that, received a job through the Ministry of Agriculture under an NNP administration. He got a job at the GCNA, which have to be approved by the Ministry of Agriculture, and he got the job. The chief cultural officer at the moment, when he got the job as CEO of the Spice Corporation, a perceived NDC supporter, when his name came up on a short list to the cabinet, the NNP cabinet, a couple of them in there, or one or two of them in there might have said, he's yellow. The general consensus of the cabinet and the words of the Prime Minister then, Dr. Keith Mitchell, if he is the one with the merit, if he is qualified for the job, it don't matter the color. And he was given the job as CEO of Spice Corporation. He is now the chief cultural officer in the Ministry of Culture after resigning as CEO. And there are others, but more personal, not that public, that I wouldn't speak about. Persons who, no matter the party they supported, which was the NDC, got the advisor to the Minister of Finance, Richard Duncan. He was made the chairman of FROC under an NNP administration. Yours truly, in 2006, after Ivan, when the government started training young ladies in cosmetology, they called me. They called on yours truly Again, it was said in the cabinet when my name came up that she's yellow. Couldn't be more yellow than that. And it was said she is the one most qualified to do the training, and so she is going to do the training. I trained young women in scores of young women, dozens of young women in cosmetology from 2006 to 2008 when NDC came in, up to when NDC came into office. Do you know that when NDC came into office, I never got one person to train in cosmetology? Not one person. Folks, this is some serious stuff here. Some serious stuff. The Minister of Culture, Adrian Persuader Thomas, now you sitting as Minister of Culture, sitting in the cabinet of Grenada, because you was paid 30 pieces of silver, and you're sitting there, grinning the most, licking the most. Don't worry, I wouldn't say yet, and I'm saying yet, because you guys just pull out the worst in people. I wouldn't say yet. What you told me about Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, the then leader of the NDC, when he swindled St. David's, the constituency of St. David's, from underneath you. But time will tell. Time will tell. And I'll bring to the people what's going on with this Japan thing, you know. There's nothing that y'all don't find a way to wash money. No, nothing escape. None shall escape. But I'll move on because I don't have enough time. Don't have enough time. But I want to play to you a clip of the Prime Minister on victimization of youth. And he's sitting as the executive, as the leader of the executive of this country in the cabinet, and victimize my daughter.
Summarize. One, our youth must be free to pursue their careers, their jobs, their education, their creativity without any political victimization. And without any precondition to party affiliation. Yes. And I will say this to you. If under a National Democratic Congress government and you are youth and any public officer or any politician ask you as a precondition to you getting any government service or any scholarship who you vote for or who your family voting for, I'm giving you the personal commitment that you can call me and I will put them or he or she in their place. There will be no precondition to party affiliation. If you are qualified, if you work hard, and if you are ambitious, that is all that will matter. So I want to assure our youth of that.
There's no need to have to call you because you was sitting in the cabinet. You're the man in charge. You're the one that could override, even if the one sitting there say, her mother is Jenny Simon. You, the one that could override all of it, and no need to call you. But a lot of talk, talk, talk. They're going to all come back to haunt you. I promise you that. Trust me. On a lighter note, the people of Marquis, Soubise, Grenville area, and even on the western side, as I've seen photos of yesterday, in the western area, are calling on Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell to provide the nets that he spoke of during the 2022 campaign, the nets that will trap the sargassum out there on the horizon, trap them before they come ashore. Let me show you a clip of a citizen of the St. Andrew area.
To show you folks in the diaspora and other parts of Grenada, maybe the Caribbean, wherever you are, what it's like for us here as we have to deal with. Laurel says she's going to buy a net. I, I clearly understand this one, Laurel. I know a net, but I tell you what, we can net and trap jacks. We can net and trap jacks. We can trap this one, yeah? We could net and trap jacks. I really think.
I mean, I could understand the joke. I could understand the joke in it. It was just a set of nonsense to fool people into voting for y'all. And you get away with it. But you did say it. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Here is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell offering nets to chill, as he said, Sargassum.
If you view life negatively, you will simply perhaps see the sargassum as a problem. But if you view life positively, we know that everything that has been placed on planet Earth is placed there by the Creator. And He gives us the wisdom to find creative ways to use whatever it is that is on planet Earth. So we see the sargassum as an opportunity for us, in fact, to be able to use it to the benefit of Grenada. And so we intend, first of all, to capture the sargassum before it gets to shore. We intend to research, bring into Grenada nets that we can run along the coastline so that we can capture the sargassum before it gets to shore. We can then bring it ashore. We can then store it appropriately, conduct the necessary research on it, and use the findings from the research to create products that would be useful for us. And let me make it clear, there are already other islands within the OECS that has been exporting the sargassum to European countries. So we have an asset which is simply lying along our coastline, and we have not been utilizing it. We are satisfied that we have enough scientists, that we have enough researchers within Grenada, the OECS, and the wider Caribbean who will be able to help us address this problem. And so we do not intend to allow our citizens in Soubise, Marquis, Grenville, and the coastal areas of St. David and St. George's to simply have to continue to live with the stench of the sargassum when it gets to shore and when the sun starts shining on it, which to a large extent is what creates the scent by the gases being released from the sargassum. So we intend to address this matter and address it in a way that will in fact create economic activities for St. Andrew and St. David. So we want to assure you that we will not simply allow this problem to go unchecked.
Need I say more? The only thing I want to mention is the sargassum being an asset. An asset to whom? The people that suffering in the areas, losing their equipment and so from the scent and whatever. And he know it. He knows what goes on. We're almost in year 3 and nothing. There was an allocation in the supplementary budget 2024 We host that Sargassum forum here, you know. We hosted a Sargassum forum. Folks, we take a quick break. And when we come back, it's bankrupt Bramble budget time. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. The Prime Minister, in his constituency wrap-up, when he ambushed Minister Cornwall, and as I'm there, I saw former Senator Tessa Sincere, candidate. She was the NDC candidate for St. Andrew Northeast, on a program, and saying that the opposition members, how they disrespected the parliament by only walking in and out, leaving when they want. This people, sometimes I wondered if they blinded, really blinded, because the Prime Minister, the head of the executive, was absent from the 2 days of debate, budget debate. Absent, missing. He was not there until the last hour of the second day. He showed up. We heard nothing from the Speaker of the House as to why the Prime Minister was missing. Not a word. And yet, for all they're saying, they heard nothing why the former Prime Minister Keith Mitchell was not in the Parliament. When the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, said that Dr. Mitchell, the member for St. George's Northwest, was stuck in traffic somewhere. He's coming, but he was stuck in traffic. We had nothing about from the Saga boy. Nothing. Missing for 2 days. And you talking about disrespect? Something wrong with all of you. Something, and I'm putting doctorate to your name. Listen, let me continue. Let's continue. So he showed up with a book written by Stephanie Kelton. And the name of the book is The Deficit Myth. You know, it's all about drama and showbiz and a movie. It's always about making a movie. That's why he don't leave home his cameraman. Cameraman in everything, in everywhere. Right now, they're in St. Martin. Even though we speak about the travels and showed it up in the budget, we come in there. We come in. Right? So he brought this book, and it says, as I said, the name, The Deficit Myth, Modern Monetary Theory, and the Birth of the People's Economy. That's again to hoodwink and to bamboozle their way out of a bankrupt Bramble budget. It argues that concerns about public debt and the deficit are often misguided, and that government spending, particularly when properly targeted, can be a tool for economic growth rather than constraint. Now, and this is what the deficit myth is saying, right? Let's see the Prime Minister and his book.
Speaker, with your leave, since we normally have to quote our references, this is a book. It's one of the New York Times bestseller. and it's called the deficit myth. I said before, Mr. Speaker, that if I had to service debt or service the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, I will service the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. So, Mr. Speaker, if we have to borrow to service the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, we will borrow. But, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance in his presentation made it abundantly clear, as clear as outside is now, that the budget is fully financed.
Deliberately trying to pull wool over our eyes. Deliberately trying to deceive, one more time, the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Prime Minister Mitchell, and let me take that over. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, you know that in our situation, with this budget, your book as a prop for your budget won't hold water. You might as well give us a basket to go by the standby. Because Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, in this instance, there is no tool for economic growth because most of your budget going in recurrent expenditure and not capital expenditure. In fact, not one new capital project was named in your Bangkok Bramble budget. Not one. Folks, because we're going to be using a lot of recurrent and capital expenditure throughout, let me explain to you what capital and recurrent expenditures are. Recurrent expenditure refers to regular and ongoing costs necessary for maintaining the day-to-day operations of the government, such as salaries, utilities, maintenance and repairs, office supplies, rents, mortgage payments, travel, and accommodation, and is distinguished from capital expenditure, which is for assets with long-term use. Now, in other words, you know when you pay your bill, that money gone, you ain't getting no benefits out of that. On the next bill come, and it's the same thing. And that is what recurrent expenditure is. Now, capital expenditure, often used in finance, refers to funds used by government to acquire, upgrade, or maintain long-term tangible assets like property, plant and equipment, assets that can generate monies, in other words. These are investments in the future. Capital expenditure is crucial for governments aiming for long-term growth, modernization, and competitiveness to invest in infrastructure, equipment, and technology needed for its operations. So, people, in the 2025 estimates of revenue and expenditure, aka the 2025 budget, our capital expenditure towards the new state-of-the-art hospital 50 years from now, according to the advisor to the Ministry of Finance and many other things, Mr. Richard Duncan, it's going to be in phases. And he used the St. George's University as reference. Now, in 2026, at the groundbreaking of the new hospital, the SGU would be 50 years old. So we're phasing off the new hospital. Most of us on this rock right now would not be alive. when we finally get to this, what new health village, right? Our capital expenditure estimates $496.5 million. And that is what we need to start the hospital, the new hospital, right? They talk about 400 million needed towards the state-of-the-art hospital. So our capital expenditure estimates it's $496.5 million. Write that down. Write that down. And our recurrent expenditure, money, in other words, thrown in a hole, disappears, is $1,105.9 million. Now, listen, let me kind of give you an analogy so you can kind of understand exactly what this budget is about. If someone gave me $1 million and they give you $1 million, do what we want to do. Now, you decide you're going to buy a commercial building, rent out space for commercial, for business people. No, that's for life. Unless a hurricane knock it down and you have insurance, you build it back and you're gone again. Now, I decide I take in my $1 million, I add it on to my house, I put in another level, not put in my master bedroom upstairs so I could view, get a better view of the ocean. And a planting lawn around the house, I build in a swimming pool and a circular driveway. That's it for me, That my money gone there. That is what we call recurrent. It dead, money dead. Now you, on the other hand, with your commercial building, you're generating revenue, right? Now, that's exactly what capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure is about. So you heard how much was in the estimates for capital and what had just gone straight to this state-of-the-art hospital, because there's nothing else. There's no other investments, capital investments mentioned in the budget. None. According to the Minister of Finance, he said in his 2025 estimates of revenue and expenditure, our budget, his budget, their budget is fully financed.
This third budget set our country and people on a more resilient and inclusive path, consolidating past gains and accelerating progress. It provides for a total expenditure principal repayments of $1,912,872,014. The overall budget summary is as follows. Recurrent revenue, $1,192.5 million. Total grants, $72.5 million. Recurrent expenditure, $1,105.9 million. Capital expenditure, $496.5 million. Current account surplus, $86.5 million. Principal repayment, that's amortization, EC $310.5 million, sorry. Primary deficit after grants, $208.6 million. Overall deficit after grant, $337.4 million. Mr. Speaker, while the rules and targets of the Fiscal Resolution Act merits further suspension in 2025, in light of the ongoing recovery and reconstruction post-Hurricane Beryl, our government is committed to fiscal prudence and a return to fiscal rules and targets once it is not harmful to macroeconomic stability to do so. Based on our assessment, the return to fiscal rules and target under the FRA will not be before 2027. That said, Mr. Speaker, a key aspect of the FRA is the wage bill, ceiling of 13% of GDP, will not be breached in 2025. Good faith salary negotiation for the next Negotiation cycle will ensure compliance with the FRA and Sustainable Wage Bill management beyond 2025. Financing of the 2025 budget. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that the 2025 budget is fully financed. Of note, the overall deficit of $337.4 million will be largely financed from drawdowns from some $287.3 million of government deposits held in the Consolidated Fund. Details on the financing of the 2025 budget can be found on page 9 of the 2025 Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure.
Don't worry about the table knocking. That's a distraction to make us believe that something good happening. That's all a distraction. They well know. Even before, in some cases, before he finished what he's saying, in the middle of what he's saying, table knocking. They're not knocking neither, they pong. They ponging down the table. All a distraction. And two, they don't really want us to hear what he's saying neither. Eh? They don't really want us to hear too well what he's saying. And I know it's difficult for you to understand, but what we could do. That's what we have. We have to work with it. According to the leader of His Majesty's opposition, the Minister for Finance was misleading the nation.
Mr. Speaker, this loan represents 51.5% of total expenditure. It means that over half, Mr. Speaker, of our budgeted expenses, including day-to-day operational costs, could be financed through loans. Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Finance may be reluctant to tell us, but it is akin to taking out a loan to pay your utility bills, your water bills at home. The Hansard would therefore record this as the largest loan appropriation bill in Grenada's.
Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Now let's take a look at page 9 of the estimates of revenue and expenditure. And the summary, let me get here, of central government finances, table 1, fiscal summary, all in EC dollars, millions, right? The total revenue and grants, approved estimates for 2024 was $1,321.4 million. Actual, provisional, and that is what was actually spent, was $1,687.7 million. And for the estimates of 2025, the allocation is another $1,265 million. We're going to move down to the total expenditure. And the total expenditure for 2025 estimates $1,602.4 million. 2024, $1,320.8 million. And the actuals was $1 billion, and that's for 2024, $1,377.3 million. Current expenditure 2024, $901.3 million. Actual, $915.9 million. And in the estimates for 2025, $105.9 million, right? That is current expenditure. That's the money we throw in a hole and we don't get it back. The capital expenditure for approved estimates 2024, $419.6 million. And the actuals, $461.4 million. And in the estimates for 2025, $496.5 million. You see the comparison, and they're talking about big time budget. You see the comparison. The monies, the estimates in the current expenditure, money's throwing down in a hole, money's for bills, money's you don't get back. You don't get none on it. It's in a billion, 1 billion, 105. He said it. He said it there. 1 billion, 105.9 million. And in the capital expenditure, projects and so that we're supposed to, so we could, infrastructure and so, $496.5 million. Now, we're moving down to, they have current account balance. Current account balance, 86.5. And you're going to hear about this 86.5 million, right? We're going to hear about this. We're going to hear about it. Primary balance in the red, in the minus, 281.1 million, right? Everything I'm speaking about here is in the millions or the billions, right? We're moving down to overall balance, including grants. Folks, $337.4 million. In the red, in the negative. In the negative. In other words, our deficit. $337.4 million. Drawdown on deposits, 287.3. That is what they said they're going to use to access to finance the budget, loan payment, authorization loan payment, and that is 84.5 million. And other is 287.3 million. No, this is what we heard from the Minister of Finance there, trying to explain what is going on. Now, let's hear from the advisor in finance for the government, the advisor for the government, Mr. Richard Duncan. Let's hear what he had to say on surplus and deficit.
You're also talking about incurrence of a deficit of $337 million, I think.
The problem is, first of all, when the deficit initially shows up on your current account, that's when the money you're making from your taxes and so on, your revenue, cannot even pay for your electricity, your salaries, your pension. You have a current account deficit. That's the start of the problem. You're not in that situation. But when the deficit occurs, the problem that the budgeteer has is, how am I going to finance that deficit? You have options, right? You could sell off some assets and get some money. You can withdraw deposits, if you have any, that you have built up over the years, and you can borrow. You also have the government saying that I'm going to draw down some monies from deposits which I have in the banking system and at ECCB. If you read the documents carefully, especially from the IMF, right, government has money in the banking system and at ECCB that it could use to fund the deficit, and that's the option that they have chosen. Those two options.
Those are the options. Those are what I read for you from page 9 in the estimates. And he's agreeing, really. You got to borrow the money. You got to borrow the money. The minister did come to the house to borrow $825 million. So you could try to spin it as how you want. We broke. A deficit is a deficit. Total expenditure for 2025 estimate, $1,602.4 million, close to $2 billion, which does not include debt repayment. Now subtract the revenue and grants, $1,265 million, from the total expenditure, $1,602.4 million, puts us in an overall balance, including grants, a deficit of the $337.4 million I spoke about and the Minister of Finance spoke about. So I just told you how that $337.4 million came about. Now, debt repayment amounting to $439 million, because remember, they never told us about debt repayment. But debt repayment is amounting to $439 million. Added to the $337.4 million in the deficit, together we get a whopping $776 million in the negative, because paying debt is in the negative, right? Which justifies the Minister of Finance coming to the House asking to borrow $825 million. Yeah. So now I guess you would say, well, okay, the deficit is $776. Why he needs $825 million? $25 million. No. Given the deficit of $776 million, the Minister of Finance was correct when he said he needed to borrow, at first, $725 million. But there's no give and take there. So, that is why he needed to ask for more. Now, the total expenditure, including debt payments, is $2,041 million. Given a deficit of $776 million. So the minister was correct when he said he needed to borrow more, which is the $825 million, which represents 40.4% of the total expenditure, including debt, and 51.5% of the total expenditure, excluding debt. Now here is, remember, for St. Andrew Southwest in the budget debate.
We have enough money to cover our interest payments. It means that we have enough money to pay for our transfers and subsidies. And after we have paid all that, we still have $86.5 million left. What do you want better than that? This is good fiscal management, Mr. Speaker. Good management. And let me tell you, that $86.5 million will go as part financing of our capital expenditure. So we are, in fact, Mr. Speaker, covering our capital expenditure in part, yes, because we have a current account surplus. Yes, that's what he must say to this House. Yes. And I'm saying, if the need comes for me to give them a lecture on government fiscal accounts, so they will understand it well, I'm available. Free of cost. Free of cost.
Remember I told you, pay attention to the 86.5. He stopped there and didn't go down to the primary balance, excluding grants, which is in the red, which is in a deficit, $281.1 million. And then down to the overall balance, the $337.4 million in deficit. He didn't go there. He's not going there. He's sticking to the 86.5. So yes, the 825 million is more, but that is because revenues fluctuates. They can fall short, of course, or they can increase. So if the revenue is more, then we will come closer to the deficit, the 776 deficit, the 776 million. Let me not leave out the million. 776 million is the deficit, right? And the $825 million will be less, of course. We would not need all of that. In other words, we won't have to borrow as much. However, if we fall short in revenues, we will in fact need more than the 776, hence the reason for the $825 million borrowed. Or borrowing, because we ain't know where to get it from yet. And at the rate the year 2025 start off with what's going on the port, I met a broker the other day, a very busy broker, who said to me, right now he's making kites for sale. He's not been on the port for a couple of weeks. There's nothing happening. Those of us in retail, small businesses, we know, we're feeling it. We are barely surviving, barely meeting our bills. Barely, and when I tell you barely, barely making it. Hear what the leader of the opposition had to say in rebuttal.
A deficit is what it is, a deficit.
A deficit is what it is, a deficit.
Now, Mr. Speaker, let us scrutinize. You see, it's not just about what the minister said, because you see, there's something that's more important than what he just said. It is what is in the budget document, Mr. Speaker. And it's not even just what's in the budget document, Mr. Speaker, it's the behavior of the administration, the posture of the administration. Put that together with the figures and what was presented, and you get the true picture. Don't just listen to what he said. So let us scrutinize the estimate of revenue and expenditure to assess the harsh economic reality we currently face as a nation. Mr. Speaker, the government projects total revenue of approximately $1.265 billion against a staggering total expenditure of $1.602 billion, resulting, Mr. Speaker, in a deficit of $337 million. Mr. Speaker, where are we heading with this deficit, Mr. Speaker? We have moved from previous surpluses to a daunting deficit of $337 million. And it really doesn't matter, Mr. Speaker, how the PR representatives of this government explains a deficit. A deficit is what it is, a deficit. Mr. Speaker, this deficit, and he didn't say that either, this deficit does not include debt, which, if it is added, Mr. Speaker, will take us to over $776 million. He never said that. So who's paying the debt? Who's paying the interest on the debt, Mr. Speaker? As a matter of fact, you know, we spoke about suspending debt payments. Well, Mr. Speaker, you see there are children here and they need to understand. Suspending debt payments don't mean that all our debts are suspended. This is why, Mr. Speaker, if you check the document, the said government made allocation for payment of debt in 2026. So, Mr. Speaker, I am therefore not surprised that the government has brought a loan appropriation bill before this House, not for 50 million. If you want to be, nice and say, well, after you take off what the minister said, they can draw down, and you're left with a 50 million deficit still. Mr. Speaker, they brought an appropriation bill before this House for $825 million.
Bottom line, we are spending more than we are earning. And if we had the surplus they claim they have, we won't have to borrow $825 million. Let's hear the leader of His Majesty's opposition as she continues.
Mr. Speaker, spending above your means is a dangerous place to be. We don't need no economists to tell us that. So, Mr. Speaker, the drone shows, the fireworks, the galas, the traveling with large delegation continues to the extent, Mr. Speaker, that this government is budgeting almost 100% more for international travels in 2025 than in 2024. Mr. Speaker, this tells me that there is a lack of awareness of the seriousness of this situation and the situation facing this country.
So when we look at what make up the total expenditure in this budget, the recurrent expenditure, remember my money I take and buy and build swimming pool and thing, that gone down in a hole. No return into that. The recurrent expenditure or the day-to-day expenses of the public sector, including debt payments, $1,544 million. Capital expenditure or expenses for projects is $496 million. I need you to keep that, bear that in mind. Given a total expenditure of $2,041 million, our first $2 billion budget. In other words, 76% of the government expenses are just to run the public sector. The government increased advisors, the amount of advisors, 5 new ministries, large security contracts to entities that were created post-June 2022. Funds to nation builders, National Celebration Committee, the NOC, increased fees to board members, travel, entertainment, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and Canada missions, etc., etc. Capital expenditure represent 24%, which is mostly what was budgeted for the groundbreaking of the new hospital in 2026. Not today, not 25, in 2026. Just something to distract us. The mere fact that the loan can be financed 40.4% of the total expenditure and only 24% of the total expenditure is capital. At least 16% of the loan will be used to fund recurrent expenditure or day-to-day expenses of the government, which involves funding themselves and their cronies, basically. The debt was $2.1 billion at the end of 2022, and it is going to be over $3 billion, an increase of 943% in less than 3 years of this Deacon Mitchell-led administration. Now let's move to page 11 of the estimates. Economic and Fiscal Performance 2024. And let's hear the Minister of Finance as he report on CRIF.
Hurricane Beryl has tested the robustness of our disaster resilient financing strategy. And we can draw important parallels between this government and the former administration on this important subject. Our commitment to the payment of the CRIF premiums when the former administration was contemplating withdrawing from a facility, a potential disastrous decision. Thankfully, this administration stayed the course and expanded coverage for CRIF to include Grand Neck and Nawassa, and we considered Hurricane Beryl impact a few months ago. Our decision to stay the course has resulted in CRIF payout of $44 million over $180 million into the Treasury. The payout for the CRIF includes, but is not limited to, immediate post-event repairs to public buildings and physical infrastructure, that's roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, $15.8 million. Repairs to infrastructure for communities, that's housing, community centers, etc., $15.7 million. Purchase of food and water and medication includes for individuals include $3 million. Risk mitigation activities to reduce vulnerability to future and natural hazard events, $13.5 million. Payment to persons in support of their livelihood, for example, farmers, fishermen, $31.3 million. Burial income support program and relocation of elderly citizens due to damage elder care facilities, some $14.5 million. Business reactivation, $25 million. A more detailed report on the use of the CRIP payouts is laid together with the 2025 appropriation bill.
Now, let me read to you from the estimates and revenue and expenditure, and I'm reading for you here, the Economic and Fiscal Performance 2024, and I'm going to read the paragraph on the CRIF insurance. Unprecedented citizenship by investment inflows and the CRIF insurance payout bolstered government's fiscal position in 2024. I'm going to read it again. Unprecedented citizenship by investment inflows and the CRIF insurance payout bolstered government fiscal position in 2024. An overall balance surplus of $310.4 million, 81% of GDP, was recorded as of December 2024, with a primary balance surplus after grants of $432.9 million, 11.3% of the GDP. These provisional balances were greater than budgeted and surpass the fiscal performance on record for 2023. But of course, if you take the $118 million given to us for the burial relief to help our people in Carriacou and Petit Martinique and some in the north of the island who are still suffering, who are still under tents, tarpaulin on the steps below houses, and in makeshift living quarters. And we put it in the consolidated fund, in your words, to bolster government's fiscal position. You must be in a better position than in 2023. We didn't have a burial in 2023. Right? Now, here is the page 14 with the recurrent revenue performance. Now, what the government did was to put the CRIF money as revenue. Right? Now, under revenue here, recurrent revenue performance 2024, nowhere on this document is CRIF, because it's not a revenue. Nowhere on it. The list, the columns, personal income tax, withholding tax, corporate tax, property tax, VAT, excise tax, annual stamp tax, import duty, petrol tax, VAT. Nowhere. It continued. It continued. Right? Custom service charge, environmental levy, contributions to NTF, other CBI related fees. Nowhere have we seen the CRIF, because it is not a revenue. Folks, the CRIF money was used as revenue, and as they said, to bolster the economy. And bottom line, now we know where the CRIF monies went. For months, citizens was asking, where is the $118 million we got from the CRIF payout? The government, the Deacon Mitchell-led administration, took the CRIF funds and put it in the consolidated fund as revenue to help pay bills. The CRIF monies was used to cushion the deficit. In their words, the CRIF insurance payout bolstered the government fiscal position in 2024. An overall balance surplus of $310.4 million. Do you remember me telling you guys that this administration was saved by Beryl? Remember the mid-year review report 2024, which showed the fiscal outcome of 2024, which showed a notable overall deficit of $144 million. Remember that? And right after that came Beryl. We were broke. And they had no idea where the monies were going to come from to run the country, to pay the bills. And the $118 million saved them. All this, no wonder why the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique are still homeless. But are you surprised? Lest we forget, here's our very own Minister of Economic Development, Planning, ICT, Creative Economy, Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, and Cooperatives, Lennox Andrew.
My question for the Minister for Agriculture is actually linked to what the Minister of Finance would have said. The Minister of Agriculture mentioned $11.6 million that will be distributed, utilized to the average farmer or the fisher folks. Can he tell us whether or not the money for the fisher folk is from the CREF course funding premium that we have? And would, if the money for the agricultural people, is this from the CREF funding or the emergency funding and Section 22 of the Public Management Act? And when will government be going to the Parliament to get the necessary approval to supplementary budget?
All right, thank you, Linda, for your question. But actually, the best person to answer that is the Minister of Finance, not the Minister of Agriculture. Anytime you talk about money, you have to go to the Minister of Finance, But be that as it may, well, first of all, let me say, all expenditure comes from what is referred to as the consolidated fund. So whatever money government gets, it goes into the treasury. It's the part of the consolidated fund, and expenditures are made out of that fund. In government, we do not earmark resources. So we do not say, for example, that a particular source of income goes for a particular expenditure. That doesn't happen. Obviously, under the CRIF payout, some monies work for the fishing industry. Good. So theoretically, it would seem that those money have to be used for that purpose, but it is not correct, in my opinion, to say that money is specifically used for the fishing. It's all part of the consolidated fund, and from there we have monies that we can use for whatever expenditure government needs to incur. We have prepared a supplementary estimate, good, and my understanding is that I think sometime in September, Minister of Finance, sometime in September we'll go towards Parliament for the approval of the supplementary estimates, which include all of those expenditures that I would have announced for the agricultural sector.
Now, this from a long-standing member of the public service, working out of the Ministry of Finance, to add insult to injury. In the highest position, he acted as permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance. And this is what we get. Money can be spent anyhow. You put it in the consolidated fund and you spend money on anything. Not even someone's home. I'm not going to say a business. Not even someone's home can function like that. Pure Mawet. Pure Mawet. The country's business is serious business. And we just have these people there playing games, playing footsie, ring-a roses. Knocking table, hanging down. And the Prime Minister saying he couldn't ask for a better bunch. I wouldn't doubt he couldn't get a better bunch, because they sit around him like toothless, spineless bunch with no belly, no guts, no balls.
He can't see here.
What?
He can't see here.
What can't see what?
Because I don't have no balls here.
What do you mean you have no balls?
Is there supposed to be balls in here?
There's balls in your sack, dude. You're fine, dude. They don't go away.
There's no in here. What is those?
Chloe, knock it off, dude. What are you talking
There's
about?
no. Remember?
I don't need to see them.
Do you know there's no balls and there's no the thingies?
What thingies?
The round thingies?
Yes, that's your balls.
Yeah, but it's gone.
Where did they go?
I don't know.
Go in the bathroom.
I did.
Check.
The little round thingy's missing. I mean, look at what he did to Minister Cornwall, the Minister of Finance, in Parliament. And Minister Cornwall just sat there looking like a bird that fell in an oil spill. Folks, yet they've published a document of a CRIF payout. And let me check my stash here. I need to show you, to read to you that document. Now they've published on budget 2025, they have the CRIF payout, and it said immediate post-event repairs to public building and physical infrastructure, roads and bridges, hospitals and schools, 15.8 million. Repairs to infrastructure for communities, housing community, health centers, etc., 15.7 million. Purchase of food, water, and medication for individuals, 3 million. Risk mitigation activities to reduce vulnerability to future natural hazard events, 13.5 million. You know what I mean, eh? Payment to persons in support of their livelihoods, example, farmers and the fisheries, 31.3 million. We can check that one. Beryl Response Income Support Program and the relocation of elderly citizens due to damaged elderly facilities, 14.5 million. Business reactivation support, 25 million. We can check that one as well. So, in all of that, only two accurate items on there. The payments to persons in support of their livelihoods, 31.3 million, and the business revitalization support, 25 million. Where is the 26 million to MIT? Where's that? Now let's move on to vote 29. Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation. Capital expenditure by project. Page 637 of the budget. I'm going to read from a snippet of the budget, the estimates of revenue and expenditure 2025 to 27. Ministry of vote 29. Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transportation, capital expenditure by project. Now, y'all have to listen well, because all of us have to figure out what these so-called items are, right? Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project. And this is nothing for 2024, nothing for nothing in the 2024 estimates. 2025, 6,500,000, so 6.5 million. OECS data for decision-making project, 1 million. Grenada Resilience Improvement Project, GRIP, $6,020,905. All of those is for 2025 estimates. There were nothing in 2024 for those. OECS Regional Health Project, $2,225,000. All these in MIT. Integrated Physical Adaptation and Community Resilience, $2,844,100. Unleashing the Blue Economy in the Eastern Caribbean, $1.5 million. Institutional strengthening for 2024 estimates, $448,000, nothing for the 2025. Canada CARICOM Expert Development Initiative, 2024 estimate 450,000. 2025 300,000. Community, this is where the things start to get sticky. Community mobilization, empowerment, and transformation. In the 2024 estimates, approved estimates, $9 million. In the actual provisional, that is what was spent, $26.8 million. And in the 2025 estimates, he got another another $14 million. Moving along. Purchase of fixed assets. A crane truck. 500,000, that was in the 2024 estimates. And then we have Visible Transformation Program. 2024 estimates, 1 million. He spent 630,000. And for the 2025 estimates, you get another $2.5 million. Hurricane Beryl response, 2024 estimates, 16.5 million. And in the actual, he spent 8,595,407. And then for the 2025 estimate, he got another $7 million. Now imagine, he's overspending on community mobilization, empowerment, and transformation. Don't know what that is. Don't know what the hell that is. But for the Beryl hurricane relief, just about half of what was in the estimates, the approved estimates, 16.5 million. He spent $8,596,407. Now, we're going to let's continue for a little bit. Let's continue before we zero in on what's really going on in the ministry of MIT. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. A haven for misappropriation of funds. In other words, theft. A load of trumped up reasons to embezzle funds, to wash monies. The ministry of MIT. In 2024, 26.8 million spent on community mobilization, empowerment, and transformation. 9 million was allocated, and 14 million allocated for 2025. What exactly was those monies spent on? But for Hurricane Beryl response, 2024 estimates 16.5 million was allocated, and only $8,596,407 spent. But yet, 7 million more was estimated for him in 2025. All made up projects to launder money. Several reports came to me from the Ministry of MIT. Contracts being signed for thousands of dollars, more than the amount given to them by the contractor or the amount they plan to spend on a specific house, check written to the contractor in huge amounts, in excess of what it would cost for the house, and the extra have to be given to the office, given back to the office, the MIT office. Now, this is not Simon Says making up stories. These, my friends, are facts. These are facts. I had a conversation with a contractor, and I myself couldn't believe what I was hearing. Now, he had signed up for 2 contracts, an 18 by 20 house costing $30,000 and a 14 by 12 house costing $15,000. Folks, listen carefully to this here. He was busy with other jobs, his personal jobs, not for this government project. Build back, I don't know which housing project. They called him saying, come down with a valid ID. The checks are ready for the work, for the jobs, for the contracts. He ain't started no work yet because he was not able to touch them as yet. So he did go down with his ID. Miss Dawn, her name is Dawn, in the ministry of MIT, walked him up to the Grenada Cooperative Bank on Church Street, Lower Church Street. She's holding the envelope with the checks, with his name written on the checks. When they got to the bank, she gave him the envelope when he went up to the counter to change the check. $45,000. Remember this, one for $30,000, one for $15,000. This is not second and third hand information. This is first hand information. The gentleman said he could not keep it. He needs to talk about it. And he said, you don't be afraid to say everything that I mentioned to you. It is all hard facts. So he decided to build, he started to do, but no, let me step back. So he went up to the counter, he changed the checks, and he counted the $45,000 in front of Miss Dawn, who collected the $45,000 and went back to her ministry with $45,000. Remember, he said he didn't take any money from them because he didn't start, and he wasn't ready to start the work, the job as yet. So he started one of the jobs, and that was the one for $15,000, the smaller of the 2. He started the job. He couldn't do the second one, which is the bigger of the 2 houses. And he had other private work that he was doing as well. So he contacted someone he knew, a colleague, to do the second house and referred him to MIT. MIT called the gentleman, of course, come with your ID, come and change the check. The check for what? Didn't the first gentleman change a check for $30,000 for that job? Anyways, the other gentleman went. And of course, it wasn't for the job because they gave him a check to change for $17,000, which he changed and gave to them. So, more than 3 months after the first gentleman changed the $45,000, more than 3 months, is when he finally finished building the house. and he got his $15,000, and he get a $500 bonus. That's maybe to hush your mouth. Look at the 500, hush your mouth. The other one, in the meantime, building the $30,000 house, start to wonder, well, why they gave him a check for 17 to change for 17,000, and he wasn't going down so with him. He wanted to know why. So he make a little confusion, he quarrel, he make a little confusion, and so they ended up giving him $26,000. Don't forget the $30,000 that the first gentleman cash was for that thing. But my man changed another 17,000, right? Recently, the second gentleman told him that he was called to change another check for another job. They didn't tell him which job, they didn't tell him what size house, they didn't tell him how much it's going to be, but they have him down, and he changed one already, so he going to change another one and hush. So he went to change another check, and he waiting because there is nothing yet, nothing going on. So the first one who paid, he spent 3 months. Remember? So the question is, what was the hurry to change the two checks that came up to $45,000? And where this money is going? Where are these monies going? And the real question is, how is it that the Ministry of MIT is writing their own checks? When this thing, there's supposed to be a system. There's supposed to be a system, which I'll explain to you in a minute. Persons living in the diaspora are getting contracts. They're living in the diaspora. Then they're gathering up 2, 3 boys from here, and they're collecting the big money. I guess they're changing checks too. The Project 500 houses. You hear the saying how they can find workers, and we need workers, and they matter to import workers. They had workers, but they want to give the contractors $80,000 to build these 2, 3, whatever bedroom houses that would cost more. As the contractor told me, every time you go to one of the places that sell the lumber and so, the hardware stores, the price of an item, the individual item, is going up every time. And they just want to give them the $80,000 for material. They have to purchase material, pay workers with $80,000 for the Build Back Better they have up and done for me. No wonder why it is where it is still in the early stages, foundation. And so the workers, the contractors and their workers walk on off the jobs. That's why they don't have workers. And trying to get others to take it, they're refusing to take it because they will end up in the hot seat. And this is what is going on with all these many housing projects through MIT. Through MIT. Folks, I want to, let me read to you here how this thing's supposed to work. The ministry in question, and in this case MIT, have a line item with a budgetary allocation for the specific job, right? So the Ministry of MIT, together with the Ministry of Works, right, would be responsible for the project. Well, infrastructure, as they call it now. So they're responsible for making sure the project is done and to process payments on each occasion of the drawdown. Now they process the payment. The ministry, the MIT, should sign the contract, and the contractor is paid in phases. That's the drawdown. Through the Ministry of Finance. So once the Ministry of MIT, or if it's housing doing the project, and the Ministry of Infrastructure, they go, they look over where that phase, everything is in order, they put through, or should put through, the amount to the Ministry of of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance will either the monies in the bank account if that's the way the contractor wants it, or issue a check for the invoice coming from MIT, okayed by infrastructure, to collect that check from the Treasury of Grenada. That's the system. That's how it's supposed to work. Everybody is supposed to be out there writing check and spending money and cashing check and telling people bring back. Now there's a contractor who was supposed to build a $10,000 house. They call him to change a check for $20,000. Ask him to take $5,000 for his project up front and bring back $15,000 to the Ministry of MIT. And at the end of his project, he'll get his next $5,000. Yeah, what? He took $10,000. Did they ask him for the extra five? No. What we used to say as children growing up, thief from thief, may God laugh. That's what you used to say. And I'll have you know, my friends, that the contractor, the one who changed the $45,000 with the two checks, he does not have in his hand a contract. They called him in, he signed the contract, and they kept the contract without giving him a copy. All he have to show is photos of the houses. And remember, when he got paid, he ended up getting paid $15,500. Imagine, coming from a ministry, $15,500 cash was paid off to this contractor. Now, Simon Says is calling on the FIU, the Integrity Commission, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, the Accountant General, to investigate the Minister of MIT and what is going on in the Ministry of MIT, to investigate the Permanent Secretary in MIT. Did I mention, and one of the contractors said, when all this scammy looking things going on with changing the checks and so, and the amount he had to change, and went to the Permanent Secretary to find out what's really going on here. Why is this amount? She said it has to be a mistake, and that she would look into it and get back to him. He's still waiting. He's still waiting. Miss Dawn must be investigated. Miss Dawn is the one handing out checks or walking contractors to the bank to change the checks. taking the money and going back to MIT. The Ministry of MIT, and we're not going to stop asking. Me ain't asking the Prime Minister for nothing because the Prime Minister ought to know what is going on in MIT. And there were allegations of persons going to the Prime Minister with issues, financial issues, and the Prime Minister sending them to the Ministry of MIT saying, go to Andy and tell him I say give you $30,000. Folks, no way, nothing. I never hear, not even in Kukute. We just do them kind of thing. We used to do them kind of, not even in Kukute. In Kukute's checks and balances when you see it done, and you the lady in the village shop. You're counting your leaf, you're counting up how much money you make, and you not even in Kukute. You have that type of behavior. But we always knew what the real purpose of that MIT ministry was. Here it is. Here it is, my friends. So, to go back to the budgetary estimates and so for this MIT, with all of this, word is that the Planning and Development Authority has not seen drawings, it is alleged, has not seen drawings for these build back better houses and whatever houses building under MIT. Because MIT seems to be their own ministry, they could spend their own money, they could do their own thing. They must be at their own planning division as well. Lest we forget, the minister was sitting next to an engineer, happened to be sitting next to an engineer at the airport. I believe it was in Carriacou. And the idea came to him about how to do the build back better houses with the concrete beams and board walls. And he asked the engineer next to him if he think that could work. And he said, yes, of course, minister, that can work. Lest we forget, another engineer told him that the building, the build back better buildings will take 8 months. And he said he wanted in 3. And the engineer gave it to him in 3.5. And we're talking about rebuilding smarter, according to the minister.
Rebuilding smarter after burial. Mr. Speaker, a deliberate and strategic approach has been taken to not only replace lost or damaged infrastructure and livelihoods, but to build back better. Mr. Speaker, in response to the Hurricane Beryl, we have so far pumped in excess of $100 million into the hands of ordinary Grenadians in the form of cash grants, building materials for roof and repairs, construction of new homes, business reactivation support, the farm labor and input support, among other critical needs. Mr. Speaker, in all our efforts, building resilience was at the forefront of our interventions. Today, significant progress has been made in rebuilding our country and restoring lives and livelihoods in more resilient and sustainable way. We have built resilience houses for low-income and vulnerable families. We provided material assistance as well as tax relief to homeowners who suffered level 1 and 2 or minor to moderate damage to help restore their lives. Through strategic partnership, we have secured some 47 prefabricated houses from our less fortunate citizens.
Vote 30, Ministry of Infrastructure, Social Development, Public Utilities, Civil Aviation and Transportation, Capital Expenditure Project. In other words, Ministries of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. The first thing I notice is that the projects of this administration are all pay as you go. You never know from up front how much the project costs. And then they all end up in overruns. and not little overruns, huge overruns. Money is being allocated in every budget for some of these projects. And I'm talking the 2023 budget, the 2023 supplemental, the 2024 budget, the 2024 supplemental, and now again, the 2025 budget. For months, Simon Says been asking what is going on with the project on the cliff, the True Blue project, the True Blue Road project. And we've been getting, I've seen movies with the Prime Minister on the cliff project where he's saying how good the project is going, how well the project is going. I've seen movies with the Minister of MIT showing the True Blue Road project and how a wonderful job up to today. And I have to point at this. The True Blue Road project in a mess. They had to dig up, put back, dig up, put back. And all because Minister Andy in MIT, in one of his times acting as Prime Minister of Grenada, went behind the Prime Minister's back and signed off on contracts with CCCCI and contractor Nelson Louison, being paid $100,000 cash in hand in exchange for the contract, the Cliff Road contract, and $15,000 renovation on Minister Andy's pickup. All kind of wrong things going on. The contractor had the money. Remember, he went in court with the brother. He lose the case. Blah 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 blah. And so, issues with getting paid from the government, because it is alleged the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, did not want to use that company to do the roads. But then, again, you put in Minister MIT hand to hurriedly do the True Blue roads because you're having a big show coming up with the heads. Something you should have refused to do. But no. So now, Mr. MIT can turn down contractor Nelson Louison. He can't. He had to give him the work. So he gave him the work. And so today, the Prime Minister is threatening, all in the budget, all up in there, threatening the contractor if he can get the work by when and what he go do, blah, blah, blah. You're going to just expose your minister, and we're going to find out that what Simon Says was saying all along is true. We have the receipt, We have the receipt. But the surrogates don't believe. What a lie. He didn't do that. He didn't take that. He didn't think. Minister Andy's a good man. He's the best minister. The best minister. Ask him where those monies in MIT come from and where they're going, because we still would like to know where he getting the money from, where the money coming from to go in MIT for all these checks they're changing and all the actual spending. 11 million plus and all, where those monies are coming from, we'd like to know, and where it's going. When the people change these check and bring back the money for them, the extras, and the extras will be big. I hear about 100,000, that turned out to be 150,000. Big money, big thing. The bigger the cost of the project, the bigger the excess. Right? So, come back on track. And I have here, of course, the estimates from the 2025 to 27 estimates of revenue and expenditure. So under the Ministry of Infrastructure, Physical Development, Social Utility, Civil Aviation and Transportation, capital expenditure by project. Simoon Cultural Center. The approved estimate in 2024 was $3 million. The actual spent was $6,680,805. New estimates for 2025, $5 million. We're going to move down because I can't do all and we're running out of time again. But they had compensation for land acquisition, e-mobility project, new market development, construction refurbishment, and extension of government buildings, ministerial complex, asphalt works, concrete works, all of this, there are a lot. The St. John's River Flood Control Project. They had approved estimate for 2024, $9 million. Trill, $1,253,125 spent on what? Not a stone was moved in the St. John's River since the NDC came into office. But they spent $1,253,125 out of $9 million. And in 2025, they still get an estimate of $8 million. Moving along. And we have the Guav Ministry Building. Anybody could tell me where that is? I would love to make a visit. And in 2024, the estimate was $500,000. Zero actuals. Not 1 cent was spent. But in the 2025 estimate, we're still giving them even more money, $750,000. The Western Main Road Project corridor upgrade. The Western Main Road corridor upgrade. Let me give it its correct name. 2024 estimates approved. $1 million. They spent $137,495. Like that's pocket change. Somebody took that for pocket change. And then they have in this 2025 estimates another $1 million. Lest we forget that the minister for MIT stood up in the parliament. We're going to come to that and I'll show you all of that. And said they gave him the money for that project to dig up the road in the south. Well, we had the Molyneux land slippage. They had 2024 estimates $21 million, and they only spent $503,143. That's a joke, right? That's a joke. Because we know all the extra spending and the extra spending and the extra spending. But 12 from 21, you have a little like a 10,000, at least a 10 million there. The Molyneux land slippage, the rehabilitation project, they have in the estimates for 2024, 21 million, and they only spent $12,503,143. Now, to me, that sounds like a joke because we all know there was extra spending, and they jumped down the cliff, and they had to, we know about all of that, and they're saying barely half of the money that was estimated was spent. Although that's for 2024, however, it still doesn't sound right. Then they have beautification, empowerment, sustainability, and transformation. And 12 million was estimated in 2024. They spent 18,979,306, and they get another 18 million for 2025. The rehabilitation project Springs, Woodlands, Upper Woburn, Manjaloo. In 2024, $8 million, and estimate they spent 2.9 million, and they got another 9 million for 2025. Coastal protection of the shoreline for Sortes Bay. And in 2024, they had an estimate approval of $7 million. They spent $428,158. And in 2025, they got another $1 million estimated, and another $9 million for 2026. Why? The question is why? South St. George water and sewage expansion, $10 million approved estimates for 2024, not 1 cent spent, and not 1 cent to be spent in 2025. So we have a $10 million dangling somewhere there. Farm roads rehabilitation, $7 million, 2024 approved estimates, $2,690,560 actually spent. Zero estimates for 2025. Hurricane Beryl response, a whopping $40 million approved estimate for 2024, folks, for Beryl rehabilitation and development response, right? 40 million. 2024 estimates. $8,997,035 was spent. And we have people in Carriacou and Petit Martinique homeless. Then we have the international travel. International travel for the Ministry of Infrastructure, 50,000 2024 estimates. The actuals was $21,916. However, for 2025 estimates, we have a 40,000 approved estimates here for 2025. Folks, let's continue. Now, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the travel. And this one is of the Prime Minister's office. So this is the Prime Minister's traveling here. And we have international travel. There are local travel, $61,650 under approved estimate 2024. And so there for local travel, $61,650. That's the estimate. And for the actual, they spent $24,000, and that's for local travel, whatever that is, I don't know. And international travel, no. The estimates for 2024 was $85,000, and actuals was $410,000. Hosting and entertainment, $90,000 for the estimates, and the actuals spent $1,863,281. All of that included in international travel, right? So for international travel, we have $325,187, hosting and entertainment, $1,773,281, a whopping $2,098, almost $2.1 million, in excess of $2 million. As I said earlier on, the member for St. George South, Andy Williams, announced in the parliament, because we're dealing with the UK SIF money now that's under the Ministry of Infrastructure, sweating with figures, right? So he announced in parliament on Tuesday, 11th March 2025, that the government was able to get back the UK SIF funds that were assigned to resurface the Western Main Road, will now be used to rehabilitate the Grandans Main Road. Let's hear Minister Andy Williams.
When we came in office, there was a project called UK SIF. The UK SIF project was dated since 2016. We got a grant of approximately $80 million. Is equivalent now to our current account surplus. $80 million. Since 2016, Mr. Speaker, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, nothing was done. So what happened? The UK took back the funds. Mr. Speaker, thanks to our Prime Minister, we got it back. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes the other side are so deceiving, because they will go and pretend and make people believe that it was we who lost the funds. When it was stated that because we did not use the funds and the UK was unsure of their situation, they took it back. Now, Mr. Speaker, we got back the funds from the UK SIF. And in only just over a year, we are now preparing to do infrastructure works that will involve digging up the road from by the St. George's area to as far as Moy Bishop International Airport. And Mr. Speaker, we anticipate that the main roads will be disrupted. So what do we do as a Cairn government and as a government of vision? Mr. Speaker, we started to work on the Gulf Coast bypass roads. So that in the event, Mr. Speaker, that the main roads are disrupted, people can deviate and use the alternative roads to traverse and to go where they want to go. Mr. Speaker, these road projects are just a few examples of the tangible progress we are making in the constituency of St. George.
You guys remember the drama, right? You heard him there. They came, the money goes there since 2017, 2018, 19, 20, 21, nothing done. They take back the money. And we know the drama because it was there. They said it. Folks, in a summary, in a CDB summary, the project was supposed to make major upgrades to approximately 20 kilometers of the key arterial route along the west coast of Grenada, from the capital city, St. George's, to the village of Victoria, St. Mark. The project was supposed to improve efficiency, climate resilience, accessibility, and road safety along the project route, and help expand livelihood opportunities for residents in communities along the Western Road corridor. No, that's no more. The Prime Minister give it to Handy, to dig up the South. And let me show you here. This is a copy of the summary from the CDB on the UK SIF project. Now, hold on. We ain't finished yet, you know. We ain't finished with this summary here. Right? Now, why is it this administration won't stick to the plan when it comes to using monies for what it is originally allocated for? It's just peck-a-mill. Anything goes. How are they keeping accountability? Uncle Tilly, how? Tell me how. And transparency when anything goes. Now, is it true the government is about to lose that monies again, like they supposedly did when they just came in, blaming it on NNP, who went through COVID? Let's start there. From 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, counting down the years when there were no construction, nothing happening like that. We were on lockdown. People were not supposed to be in close proximity with each other. Construction was one of the first industry to shut down. Is it true you guys ain't even have a thought put together on that UK SIF plan and was seeking external help to try and get the project moving? It didn't come true because of your pettiness. Now let's deal with Mr. Deception himself, right? If you look on the screen, you see the summary document and the summary of the UK SIF document, right? Nothing like tapes and receipts. It's from the CDB. So you can go to the parliament with nothing to show and say previous administration lost the monies and everyone believes your lies because you're so bold-faced with it. And when you say you hear, I am speaking of you as the administration. When you say what you say, people believe you. Because how dare you go to the parliament and lie? But I've said it before. This is the first place you guys go to tell lies. Because nobody comes up against you inside there. So look at the bottom. If you're looking on the screen, look at the bottom of this blue circle. Look at the bottom of that blue circle. And I'll have to get my glasses. It says in October 2017, the technical assistance was approved. Right? Here's a document, it says it. In October 2021, design consultant engaged, and by June 2023, the technical assistance should be completed. Let me reiterate here. June 2023, the technical assistance should have been completed according to the summary document. And who was in office in June 2023? NNP or NDC? Mr. Deceptive, who was in office in June 2023? NDC took office in June 2022. So 1 year later, you were supposed to complete the technical assistance. Did you? No. Now let us take a few steps back. Lest we forget again, the world was attacked by the COVID-19 pandemic. It started in Asia in 2019. By 2020, it was worldwide and ended in May of 2023. Folks, those are not my records. Those are the records of the WHO. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were lockdowns, there were no constrictions going on. And so nothing done from 20, when we say here, from 2021 to 2023, when you're supposed to be organizing, but the NDC was in office, right? The fraudster stood up in the parliament, counting down the years of COVID pandemic and saying the former administration lost the monies. Furthest from the truth. And happy to announce that his beloved prime minister was able to get back the monies. What he left out, kid as he is that himself and accompanied by Minister Lennox Andrew was sent to Barbados to meet with the people to negotiate the continuance because time had run out. Look who they sent. So bad and so worse. To negotiate. And to negotiate. Abbott and Costello. Again, there is a place called www.the World Wide Web. Be careful, little hands, what you do. Minister of Economic Development, sir, haven't you heard of economic diplomacy? When your government entered office in June 2022 and decided to spend our hard-earned taxpayers' cash in the consolidated fund, spending 75 million on retroactive pension and another 7.1 million, 1.7 million, I'm sorry, to the teachers for salaries. Duct. You have money to spend. You begging for grants and you have money to spend. Them people just watch this thing, That's probably why they didn't give you back the whole 80 million. And you get some of it. If you have to spend, what are you begging? Nonetheless, the orator, according to the minister, was able to retrieve some, not all, of the funds. And as I mentioned, they are about to lose it again. So they decided to give it to the fraudster Andy Williams to dig up the roads in the south. What do you say? And to deviate through Gulf Coast. Let's use detour, sir. Let's use detour through Gulf Coast. What happened to the Bathway roads? No, as far as I know, I don't believe grants can be repurposed. However, with the Deacon Mitchell-led administration, anything goes, especially when it comes to the rules and regulations. By the way, I passed through St. Patrick's on Sunday, No sight of the Sortes Bridge. And the Batway Road, well, they have no road left now. It's just crevice and cracks and big, deep, sleeping policemen in the road made out of ditches and potholes. As I was saying, if you're going to use the monies otherwise, and I'm talking about the UK SIF monies, what about the general hospital on medicines and reagents to do simple everyday blood tests? All you're giving the cat more cheese to watch. Continuing under the vote tender, the Prime Minister's Ministry, recurrent expenditure by standard project. The Prime Minister overspent on international travel $325,187. On hosting and entertainment, $1,773,281, in excess of $2 million. Now, here's the leader of His Majesty Opposition in the Parliament on Monday, the 10th March 2025, as she addressed the overspending on travel of our beloved Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the reverse holds true for the jet-setting Prime Minister's Ministry. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's Ministry overspent, not by 50,000, not by 100,000, by $2.1 million for international travel, hosting, and entertainment, far exceeding what was budgeted. Mr. Speaker, I question, is this a lack of prioritization? Is it incompetency? Is it mismanagement, Mr. Speaker? What is this? Over $2 million overspent on international travel, hosting, and entertainment. Mr. Speaker, while ministers of government and their political appointees travel the globe in first class, exceeding budgetary allocations, Mr. Speaker, the family of 2-year-old Kelvin, who has been lying in the hospital for almost 2 months, waiting for his family to raise the funds to take him overseas for medical attention.
Now here is Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, as she explains to her parliament. It's also questioning her travels, right? As she explained to her parliament her spendings on travel, which obviously her opposition complained about.
I have done the total, and in 7 years, the total amount comes to just about 1.457 million across 93 trips, with an average of $15,000 per trip, Mr. Speaker. I don't travel first class. I go at the last possible minute and return at the earliest possible minute. I do not stay in luxury suites, as was the wont of many a minister before this government came into office. And Mr. Speaker, everything is here. Attendance, look at all of them. If it isn't CARICOM meetings, it is the UN meetings. If it isn't the UN meetings, it is the COP meetings. If it isn't COP, it is individual meetings that require us security. On occasion, I have done 1 or 2 speeches. And Mr. Speaker, if I were only spending money, I wouldn't mind. You might curse me. That 1.45 million, you know what I asked the PS to prepare for me too, sir? What are the benefits in terms of grants that this government has gotten as a result of that travel? Mr. Speaker, would you believe that this government, and I'm going to be fair, because when the ministry prepared this, they included one figure that came at the beginning of 2018, and I don't have nothing to hide. So I told the minister, take that $27 million out. 27.6 million and 83,000. Take it out. So subtract that from $146,887,000 in grant money. Not loans. Mr. Speaker, you know what grant money is? It's free. When you walk out of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, fella, give me $20 there. That is free money.
Folks, in 7 years, Prime Minister Mia Mottley spent $1,457,000 in 7 years. $1,457,000 in travel. Meanwhile, our beloved Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, in 1 year, 2024, spent in excess of $2 million in travel, international travel. Almost $2.1 million when you round it off. And what did he come back with? 20 MOUs. And a bust of Maurice Bishop that has not arrived, is yet to have arrived. He was promised. That's all we get. A promise of 20 MOUs and a bust of Maurice Bishop that is yet to arrive. Folks, I got to wrap it up here today. But we have more to come. We have health and more to come, the blue economy. We're going to do a series of the budget. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. Thank you for joining us for yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place, as we continue with the bankrupt Bramble budget of the 2025 estimates of revenue and expenditure. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.